Okay, let's see if this works. This is a little bit different. So yeah, this is my first live stream. I'm not really sure how this works. I'm kind of just looking at things right now. Oh yeah, okay, people are coming in. Cool. Yeah. So hey, hi. I want to test out live streaming, see how this all works, and it's gonna be kind of awkward going through. Oh hey, J Dog. Yeah. Um, yeah. So welcome to my very first live stream. It's gonna be very awkward and very interesting because I don't know really much about this yet. But we're gonna go through here. So come say hi and come chat. Cool. So you can all hear me, right? You can all hear me and see me, right? Hello. Cool. Yeah. So are you guys doing good today? There's a delay on here, so if I look like I'm just staring over here, it's because I'm waiting for things to come in. Wonder if I can change the delay just so I can see it a little bit quicker. Yes. Konnichiwa. But yeah, so I kind of want to just take this time, talk to you guys. If there's any questions you want to, throw my way, talk to me, feel free. I'm gonna be probably doing this for maybe an hour or so, see how it goes. I'm using my phone right now as the webcam, so let's see how long the battery life lasts. It might die on me, but let's just take some time here. Let's talk. All right, so we got one of the first questions here asking what my education was. This is something I actually talked about in one of my first Q&A videos. So I just have a basic degree in history. I went to school originally for film, but then I switched over to history about halfway through. I've always found Japanese history to be fascinating. I've always loved, I guess going back to the film side too, I've always liked, Kurosawa films and a lot of earlier, samurai films. So that was kind of where my interest for, I think, samurai kind of started. But then, of course, there's video games too. But I've always been really passionate about samurai history, so that's why I kind of wanted to come forth and do this channel like this. But in terms of my actual education, it's just history, nothing else. Just a bachelor's degree in history at the moment. Yeah, Age of Samurai did use too much katana. That's a complaint a lot of people have. Because of course they'd be using the Yari spear mostly if you're talking about ground melee combat. They do have a lot of naginata. Of course there was naginata used during the Sengoku Jidai, but the main melee weapon was the Yari. And of course the katana as a backup. Of course they also had a lot of tachi being used too. The tachi wasn't completely gone or anything. The tachi was there. And yeah, of course, you also have, shorter weapons like the wakizashi and, of course, you have tanto daggers and things. And, of course, the uchigatana, which largely gets forgotten about. But, yeah, it's kind of a bummer that they missed that detail. Am I planning to do an overview of the currency system in the period? Maybe. So obviously my focus, as you've noticed, is more towards military stuff and structure and political things. I could get into more of like the other aspects of feudal Japan, which I'd like to. At the same time, it's not really where my interest is. Of course, it's kind of hard with my YouTube channel doing things that I want to be interested in, but also make content that I know you guys want to see. Because if I do too much stuff that I'm not necessarily interested in, it kind of wears me down after a while. It kind of hurts my creativity and productivity. So I got to find a balance between, doing stuff that, of course, a lot of my audience wants to see, but also doing stuff that I personally want to make as well. So I keep that passion going. Just keeping an eye on it, going back up the chat here because I know a lot of things are coming in. Okay. Yes, I will be doing videos about the Boshin War. Of course, that's going to be later, though, because once I finish talking about the Sengoku Jidai, we're going to be moving into the Edo period, and we're going to kind of go from there. So eventually, yes, we will get to the Boshin War, but it will be after a bit. So don't expect anything too soon. It's going to be a while yet before we get there. There's a lot of juicy stuff I want to get into in the Edo period. But first and foremost, we got to finish the Sengoku Jidai, which there's a lot left. I know there's only a few years left really in it, but there is still a lot to go through. Everything leading up to the Battle of Sekigahara, and then of course there's the kind of 14-15 year span there from 1600 to 1614 and 1615. Of course, people like to forget the period really didn't end until after the Siege of Osaka. So we have to get there first, and there's a lot to talk about, obviously. Oh yeah, I saw that video today also about is it Kings and Generals, the YouTube channel, that really big history channel. They posted that video about Onamusha, the female Japanese warriors. People like to go, well, they're female samurai, but they're not really female samurai. They're female Japanese warriors. I didn't watch the full video, but I saw they posted that. It's cool. Will I cover Book of Five Rings? Yeah, at some point I want to. I have it on the shelf right over here next to me, but I haven't really finished it yet. Like I've gotten into it, but I'm not really. That's one that's kind of harder for me to get into for some reason. I don't know why. It's from what I've read, it's a bit more technical and based of fighting, which is what Musashi was of course known for. There is philosophical stuff in there, but in terms of if you look at the Book of Five Rings and the Hagakure of course has way more in terms of philosophy and how to live your life and all that stuff. And I kind of really enjoyed reading more about that kind of stuff than I do the kind of technical stuff of swordplay. It's just currently what's easier for me to read right now. So at some point, yeah, I do want to finish the Book of Five Rings. I have had people asking me about it, but I haven't finished it yet. I have not read the book Shogun by James Clavell. I've watched the miniseries, but I have not read the book. I do want to cover the miniseries, of course. I as you've noticed, I do my film reviews kind of based off of how I am in the Sengoku Jidai series. So how far I am along there, and it gets to I want to line it up right. So I'm waiting to do a Shogun review. The closer we get to the Battle of Sekigahara. However, I also do want to make a video about William Adams, and I have actually been contacted by somebody who wants to make a video with me about William Adams. But for right now, I've just said just wait till they finish the Imjin War, which the last Imjin War video is what I'm working on this week. So once I finish the Imjin War series, I'm going to get the ball rolling on that. So I'm going to make a video about William Adams too. But in terms of Shogun by James Clavell, haven't read the book, have watched the show, plan to cover the show in a review because I do have a lot to say about the show. I'm sorry if I'm missing any of your questions here. There's a lot of stuff flooding in. I'm kind of just picking things as we go here. But thank you for all the support that's coming in, guys. Everyone's saying that they're fans of the channel. It means so much to hear that from you guys. Let's see here. Am I interested in Japanese martial arts? Yes and no. Like I'm really interested in Kendo because I think Kendo has a really interesting history, personally, with how it relates to the samurai and the Edo period, and how they wanted to keep their swordsmanship skills sharp. I personally would love to get into Kendo one day when I'm in Japan finally, whenever that happens, whenever the borders open back up and I can move over there with my job. But as of right now, I'm my interest in martial arts in general, in Japanese martial arts, I mean specifically, is a bit lower. I I did a bit of martial arts as a kid. I did karate. Of course, that's not Japanese really, but yeah, I guess I don't really have that big of an interest in martial arts as some other YouTubers do. I find it interesting, but don't really. I'm not deep into it. If I do make videos about Japanese martial arts one day, I'm going to be connecting it to the samurai as much as I can, obviously, because that's the focus. I saw a question about Sanada Maru, and I wanted to answer that. Let's see if I can find it again. Alright, I can't find that Sanada Maru question. I'm sorry, whoever asked it. I'm looking for it. But I see another question here asking me what my favorite Kurosawa film is. I really think it's hard to top Seven Samurai. Whenever someone wants to get into samurai films, I always say watch Seven Samurai first. I think that's the best intro to samurai films there is. From there, you can branch off to or watch whatever you want. But it's really impossible to top Seven Samurai. However, I do have other Kurosawa samurai films that I really like. I love Kagemusha. If you watch my reviews, obviously you know I like Kagemusha more than Ran, which I do kind of want to make a video comparing the two at some point, because there are a lot of interesting, similarities, differences, and the background history of what Kurosawa was trying to plan out with both of those. So it'd be cool to talk about, those two films and comparatively in a video all on its own. But it's between Kagemusha and Seven Samurai. I don't think you can top Seven Samurai, so that has to be probably the answer for me. But as I've said numerous times, as much as I love Kurosawa, my favorite samurai film is still Harakiri from 1962. I think it's 62. Okay. Let's see here. So, you're asking if I played Sekiro. I have not played Sekiro. In terms of those more harder kind of like Souls-like games, they're a bit more difficult for me. I don't know why. They're just as much as I enjoy them, like obviously they're hard. They're made to be hard. And there's the challenge in that, and people love that challenge. For me, I enjoy them, but at the same time, I get to a point where I burn out, and I'm like, okay, I've had enough of this, and I kind of just put it down for a while, and then I kind of forget about it. So that's kind of how it's been with Nioh, because I got Nioh obviously years ago, got the complete edition, have all of it. I played through probably half of it, and I got to a point where I was just so tired of the kind of the cycle with it, where I would advance so far, get to a boss battle that's really hard, try it on my own, try to learn mechanics on my own, realize I can't do it on my own, look up a guide, study the guide, beat the boss, and then repeat that same process over and over again. And I think the story of Nioh is interesting. I like the idea of it kind of building up to Sekigahara. I haven't played Nioh 2, but for Nioh 1, the story, of course, from what it was going towards, I like it. I want to finally finish it one day and make a review for you guys, because there's a lot of really interesting history involved there. But as a whole, it's just if you're going back to Sekiro, I do want to play Sekiro, but I gotta beat Nioh first, and Nioh is a challenge enough as it is. Is there a chronological playlist somewhere where I can learn about the wars? If by the wars you mean the Sengoku Jidai, basically how I have it laid out on my channel, for those of you who don't know, I kind of split them into chapters in terms of my Sengoku Jidai series. So, of course, you have the setting the stage videos, which the first videos I did, they're obviously I think in my opinion, they're the roughest stuff I've done. I look back at them and I kind of cringe a little bit, just because that's when I was starting out and my editing process isn't that good. But then going forward, you have chapter 1, I think I called it, of the Sengoku Jidai series, and that's kind of, I have the Ashikaga Kamon there as a symbol, because the Ashikaga were in power, although they weren't really in power. It was very loose, and that's the wars started and everything. But if you want to learn chronologically, there's chapter 1 there, and then above that you have chapter 2, and that's all about the rise and story of Oda Nobunaga up to his death at Honnoji. And then finally after that, you have the third chapter, which is what we're on now, which is all about Hideyoshi and the Toyotomi and going through and him unifying, and of course the Imjin War now. I'm debating when I want to cut off Hideyoshi's part of the story. Do I want to go all the way to Battle of Sekigahara, where essentially then Tokugawa Ieyasu takes over, or do I want to cut it at his death, at Hideyoshi's death in 1598, and be like, okay, Japan's changing again, and then make the Kamon, chapter 4 now with Tokugawa, start from there. So I don't really know what I'm gonna do just yet. If you'll come to notice, there's a bit of my scheduling I'm doing for this. I'm kind of winging it. I try to plan videos out in advance, but at a certain point, like I have ideas, like okay, I want to do this next, then this next, then this next, but I kind of lose like the order I want to do it in. But I try to get it out in somewhat of a understandable manner. Did I watch the Yasuke anime? No, and I made that post about it a while ago. That community post talking about the Yasuke show. Those of you who kind of know me on the Discord and stuff, I'm not the biggest into anime. I don't dislike anime, but I'm not the biggest into anime. I grew up reading more manga than I did watching anime, because I don't know why, but I've always just I like the way the plot moves better in the manga better than in the show. I grew up reading Dragon Ball Z manga, and then watching the show, it was kind of hard because the show was a bit more censored in some places. There was less violence, less swearing. It was just a different experience. So I read Rurouni Kenshin manga. I read a bit of Naruto back in the day, but in terms of the Yasuke anime, I don't really plan on watching it. It looks like, not that it wouldn't be interesting, but just the fact that it's so fantasy based and there's like mechs and things, it takes me out of it. So I probably won't be reviewing it. I may watch it at some point, but I'm not gonna probably make a video on it. It's just, it doesn't really fit my channel when it's that far in the direction of fantasy and going outside of history. Like if it was following history with that kind of fantasy and like, okay, now we're at Honoji and we got all these things going on, and now we're at Shizukutake, and if you're following major beats and you got those things going on, like say like Sekiro does, or not Sekiro, Neo does, that's different. But when you kind of make a whole brand new story and add in all those fantasy things, it doesn't really, I don't know, it doesn't really grip me. I could be wrong. It could be really awesome. It could follow things way different than I've seen, but from what I saw, that doesn't really do it for me. Yeah, it was really heavily into the fantasy side. What is the process of gathering info for your videos? Do you recommend some books? Okay, so I have a number of books, and they're kind of behind. I'm using the green screen here just because the room I'm in is a mess. But behind me over on this side is a wall of books I've collected, of samurai books I've collected. There is, there's Turnbull in there. There's there's the big book that I like to use a lot. It's called Samurai Battles. It's by this guy, Michael Sharp, who I haven't been able to find too much info on. So there's parts of it that I have been able to find that are incorrect in there, but you can kind of tell which parts are incorrect. But it's a really interesting kind of source book of the history of the samurai. But it's just, I have, let's see, I go through the list here. I got all these books in my head that I'm trying to think of ones to throw out for you guys. But if you're looking for books that I can recommend just for learning about the history of the period, history of specific battles and what not, in English, the best things I can just say, hey, go check these out, are books by Osprey Publishing, or Publications, I think it's called, Osprey. Of course, they make all those campaign books and stuff, and it's a lot of them are done by Stephen Turnbull, which people like to have a lot of opinions on Stephen Turnbull. Yeah, he generalizes stuff. Yeah, there's things he's gotten wrong. But if you're looking for what happened, when it happened, who was involved and stuff, they're gonna do it for you. And I use a lot of those in terms of kind of sculpting a script. But then when I really get into the more fine details and stuff, that's when I start going more into books like Hideyoshi by Mary Elizabeth Berry. That one's really good. I look up, if you look at the Japanese wiki corpus, it's a website that takes a bunch of, they are Wikipedia articles, but they're the Japanese Wikipedia articles, at least so it says, and they're translated over. So they're if you compare like, you know, them to the main Wikipedia, they're much different. They're chock full of information that obviously was plugged in by someone in Japan. And I take those a bit more realistically than obviously anything on Wikipedia. But you look at those, and those have some fine details and things also. Of course, there's a ton of romanticization when it comes to the Sengoku Jidai. So you really can't necessarily take everything as fact. You know, there's been times I've brought things up in videos that are really more theories, but I've included them like they are fact, and that comes from more of the storyteller side of what I'm trying to do with this series, because I want to kind of cover all the bases in terms of things that could have happened, things that did happen. You know, the story, say, with, for example, the story of Hide's mother being killed. That's obviously a story that in the Edo period was kind of this romanticization, a reason for maybe why he rebelled against Nobunaga. But it's still something that I think was interesting to include in the video. So when I put those into the videos, I always be like, oh, it is said that this may have happened or something like that. I try to use some wording of my own that kind of makes it so I'm not saying this is necessarily fact, but I include it regardless. But in terms of my process for those books, I would if I usually do a couple days of going through my books, going through online sources, and kind of crafting a script, and then a day of recording, and the rest of the week is editing. And if you're looking for specific books, you got to tell me what battles you're interested in, because I could give you different ones in particular. But if you're looking for broad kind of brushstrokes of the period, look at Osprey books. What's my favorite clan? I knew this question was going to get asked. What's my favorite clan? That's like asking what's your favorite movie, which someone asked what my favorite Kurosawa movie is. But basically, in terms of a clan, I can't really say, because I'm always interested in different clans. Like, they pop in that I'm really fascinated with the Hojo all of a sudden. I'm really fascinated with the Shimazu all of a sudden. I'm really fascinated with the Hosokawa. Like, it's I can't necessarily pick one. If you walked into my bedroom, I have actually a big banner on my wall of the Mori clan that I got actually at Hiroshima Castle when I was in Japan last. So you may think I like the Mori a lot, but really it's just I like the number of clans. It's not just like one or two. It's, you know, I can be all over the place. If I had to, you know, pick some that I really like, of course, like as I mentioned just a minute ago, I like the Hojo, I like the Shimazu, Sanada. Let's go with that. Probably more. I'll make a video sometime. History of torture in Japan? I don't really know too much about that. I know some of the stuff they did against Christians when they were dealing with Christianity. I know the thing with they buried people up to their necks. Yeah, I don't really know too much about torture. I know about, you know, using prisoners as, you know, sword test dummies and things, but yeah. That is an interesting question. Maybe I should look into that some more. History of torture in Japan. Crucifixion was the execution. I'm thinking of different things that are actually just executions, but I'm thinking of means of torture. Yeah, that's a really interesting topic. Yes, Triple Z Hacker. Yeah, there are too many good clans. Yeah, hey, anyone watching this stream, obviously, Triple Z Hacker has a great YouTube channel. Go check him out. He did the tournament with me. He actually won the tournament, the Shogun 2 tournament we did a while ago. So go check out his YouTube channel. Great stuff. Great gaming videos. A lot of stuff with Shogun 2. Triple Z Hacker. Let's see here. Trying to pick out questions I haven't already answered here. There's a few questions being asked that I see them, but I don't really know exactly what you're referencing to, so I'm kind of skipping over a few of them here. Books in reference to Tokugawa Ieyasu or Toyotomi Hideyoshi. Well, the one I'm reading right now, obviously for Hideyoshi, is Hideyoshi by Mary Elizabeth Berry. That's a really good one. In terms of Ieyasu, I know there's a number of books that are not just secondary sources but primary sources too. Trying to think. So the one I've been using is a really simple one because I haven't actually got a broad book on Ieyasu. I've been using the one that Turnbull did. So I'd recommend that one. But if you're looking at, of course, that's a secondary source. If you're looking for a primary source, it's a different story. Yeah. Life of women in feudal Japan. Yeah, I could do a video about that sometime. Once again, that's not really something that I have too much knowledge on. As I mentioned earlier, I'm more knowledgeable on politics and the warring period and whatnot. I'm not really not knowledgeable on other aspects of what was life like for women. What was the currency situation like? What was the economy like? That's kind of where it gets hazy for me. So I could do a video on women. It'd be much easier for me to do a video on women warriors, just like Kings and Generals did today. But that's something I could definitely do at some point. It's just that would require me to start digging into areas I really don't know too much about. Definitely possible. Did Oda Nobunaga ever plan of invading Korea and China? Yes, he did. At least so legend says. Because apparently Hideyoshi got the idea of invading China from Nobunaga. It's as far as I know, there isn't a lot of references to him saying he wants to do this. It's more of just him thinking of his grand ambition. Nobunaga, I think, is one of the most ambitious, actually the most ambitious figure of the three great unifiers. Hideyoshi obviously did invade Korea with the hopes of invading China, but of course he was kind of, at that point he was old. His health was deteriorating. He wasn't necessarily doing it at that point for his own ambition, but rather to kind of cement his line, his basically his family, so they could rule over Japan for generations to come. He was afraid at that point, and I think that's kind of the thing that gets tossed around a lot, is like why he did it. And personally, my opinion is that he was afraid. He was doing it to cement himself in his position, for his family's position, to keep Japan at peace. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it. Just put yourself in the mindset of you just unified Japan. The wars are over. How do you keep Japan at peace indefinitely? And how do you keep your family on top of it and in a strong place? Just think of all that. How would you do it? Like it's a really hard question to answer. So his logically thinking, invading Korea, invading China, seizing the, some people say he wanted to seize the mandate of heaven in China, using that as an excuse to focus all the daimyo, all their energy, all their troops on a war across in Korea and China, and then he could award land in Korea and China to samurai that fought in this war. It makes sense because that would really just take all the pressure off of things at home. He would be in charge, and everything would be great. But the problem is you have to win in Korea and China for this all to work, and if you lose, you're kind of just dooming yourself. So, Hideyoshi capitalized on it, but the idea going back, I know I went way off with this one, but yeah, it was Nobunaga apparently did originally have the idea to go after China at some point, and Hideyoshi was, I guess he told Hideyoshi at some point, or I think he proclaimed it at one point. He stood up and said it or something, and Hideyoshi was very taken aback by it, and sunk deep into him. I'm gonna do this now as soon as he came into power. How realistic do you think the tales about legendary warriors like Miyamoto Musashi? I think there's obviously so much exaggeration and romanticization when it comes to legendary warriors and stuff in feudal Japan and just stories in general. With just the Sengoku Jidai, as I mentioned. I think a lot of when it comes to Musashi is real, but there's a lot of also misconception. Things that, he may have been involved with, but wasn't necessarily, like, say, look at, like, Sekigahara, for example. Everyone says he's fought at Sekigahara, but I've actually seen some things now saying, oh, he wasn't actually at Sekigahara, but he was actually on campaign during the Sekigahara conflict with, he was with Kuroda Yoshitaka or whatever. I've seen, he was involved, he just wasn't there or something. So it's like people want to place him in more epic scenarios or something. So I think there's truth to it, but there's also, we have to, once again, this is stuff that I think would be much easier to understand for, native Japanese speakers or Japanese speakers in general, people who can read, old Japanese, texts and things, kind of who can better decipher truth behind things. It comes down to the fact that it's hard for me to answer a question just like that because I'm obviously an English speaker reading English sources, secondary sources about this stuff, and it's hard for me to sometimes tell what is fact and what is fiction. But in terms of someone like Musashi, from what I've read and from what I've been told and things, it seems like a lot of the stuff is sort of true, but sometimes a little bit off. Tell me something about Kyudo. Kyudo. That's with the bow, right? Okay. Thank you. Let's see here. What did the Ainu play in the Warring States period? I want to look into that more too, because the Ainu, the Amishi Ainu, they were up in Hokkaido, obviously. I'm interested to know what their status was, what was going on with them during the, actually through most of Japanese history, because they were there. It's just, why didn't Japan go after them? Why didn't samurai clans try to subjugate them? Obviously, Japan did eventually go after them, but it's probably a very simple answer that I could just Google right now and figure it out, but I haven't done that yet. Interesting question, though. I'm not really sure what they were doing. Yes, my PC is working. Yes. Okay, so those of you who don't know, I announced this on Patreon. I was trying to stream the last few days, but on Saturday when I was trying to stream, I woke up and my left eye was completely blurry just for some reason. My right eye was fine, left eye was blurry, and I ended up going to urgent care. And they had this thing, I think they called it SPK, where it's like just staring at the screen too much, and this kind of, I don't exactly know what it is, but you get this stuff that forms on your eye. And I had basically it formed into a line like straight across my left eye. I have to take these eye drops now for a few days, but it's good now. But so I canceled my stream on Saturday because of that. Sunday, didn't stream, had other things going on. And then yesterday I tried again, but the second I turned on to try to stream, the second I tried to do it, the internet went down. And I was like, I tried for about an hour to reconnect, didn't work. Eventually I called my provider, and there was an outage in the whole area. So it's like the universe was trying to make me wait until now, I guess. I don't know why. But I'm here now. Yeah, my computer works. And for those of you hearing, there's a sound, obviously. My computer fan is running here. It's right by my mic here. This is actually, I'm using my work computer right now. My computer I use for editing and everything. The one I actually do most of my writing at and recording at, and I do all my gaming at, is actually behind the green screen in this direction over here. But this is my smaller one that I just use for editing and things. You mentioned the Japanese pirates who terrorized the Koreans in your Sengoku Jidai series. Would you consider making a video about them? Yeah, the pirates were interesting. So Japan, like I mentioned, I think I forget which video I mentioned that in. It was in the lead up to the Imjin War. But yeah, piracy was just rampant with the Japanese. They were raiding Korea and stuff. Korean trade routes, Chinese trade routes. That's how Korea and China mostly regarded Japan for the longest time, was just piracy. They knew them for pirates. Yeah, so that'd be really interesting to come and make a video about, and because I know about that, but I don't necessarily know how much that connects to the samurai and what attempts Japan itself tried to make to really clamp down on it. I know Hideyoshi did clamp down on it, but before him, like what kind of things were being done. But it's interesting. I know I had a guy I worked with at a museum a number of years back who mentioned, I talked to him about how I like this, like samurai history and stuff. I have a YouTube channel, and he's like, "Oh, samurai, they were all pirates." I'm like, "What?" It was just like, where do you hear this stuff? Like, what? But yeah, pirates. Interesting subject. That'd be a great topic for a video at some point. Samurai pirates, or just Japanese pirates, I guess I should say. They weren't really samurai, I don't think. Somewhere, I think. And there's the interesting story that Yasuke became a pirate after he left Nobunaga's service, but who knows if that's true or not. You thought I was Japanese with an accent? I get that on a lot, actually. People think I'm Japanese. No, I'm typical, normal, white guy. But yeah, I guess it's a compliment, because I usually think, obviously, if you live in Japan, you must know a lot more about Japanese history and stuff. So I guess it's a compliment. Would I make a video about the Saikaiki and other mercenary bands? Yeah, that'd be cool. The Saikaiki, they're definitely one of the more interesting ones, because of course you get so much talked about Magoichi Saika, but of course it's interesting because there are three different personalities of, like, who is he? It's kind of like Hattori Hanzo, where there's multiple guys with the same name. Which one is he? And they each have a unique story. So I would love to talk about the Saikaiki. Perhaps that could be something I do in like a clan history video. I could talk about the Saikaiki. I always thought you were gonna be older. No, I'm for everyone now, just to let you know, I'm actually only 25 years old. Only 25. What is your relationship between Thai kings? I don't really know what the relationship was between Thai kings and Japanese bodyguards. I'm not sure. I'd love to see me cover the Hattori in... Yeah. Once again, I could do the Hattori clan history video. Like I said, for all my upcoming clan history videos, I'm not really deciding them. I'm letting my Patreon decide them. I throw out some options, but really, I let people vote on them on there. People can recommend ideas to me. Patrons can recommend ideas to me, and I'll include that in the poll. But I'm letting them kind of all figure it out, because I want to put it in their hands. Kind of just incentivizes, if you want to support the channel, that's a good way to do it, and you get a perk to decide what the next clan history video is. I just posted the new poll today on Patreon, and I'll reveal here what the options are. So I only got 2 recommendations from patrons for ideas. So I randomly put 2 other ideas in there, because I want to go for 4 options usually for my polls on Patreon. So the 4 options are for the next clan history video. The 2 that were recommended were the Otomo and the Ochi. And then the 2 that I threw in, I believe I threw in the Chosokabe, and I threw in... What was the last one I threw in? I'm going to forget now. I can just check really quick. Hopefully this isn't interrupting the stream or anything. I'm just going to go on here and just look. Let's see. Nope. Come on. I always have a hard time navigating Patreon. I don't know why. I always click on the wrong things. Okay, so we have the Otomo, the Ochi, Chisakabe, and the Imagawa. Those are the options for the next clan history video. 2 of those were recommended, 2 of those were random that I just chose. So right now they're being voted on. The one that's in the lead right now is the Otomo, but I just posted that today. I'm going to leave it up for a few weeks, see what happens. After a few weeks, I'm going to make the decision to see which one is chosen. But yeah. Oh, they're asking about, okay, so the kings of Thailand recruited some samurai bands to fight in the wars between the Khmer, Yeah, okay, I have heard about that. That's what I thought you were talking about, but I wasn't exactly sure. So that's interesting because you're kind of talking about a really interesting little facet of samurai history that not many people know about, and that is that some samurai were used as mercenaries throughout Asia. That's kind of the extent of where my knowledge goes with that. I just know that it happened. I don't really know too many of the stories regarding it, but that would be a really cool topic to dive more into and make a video about at some point. That's really, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I think that topic does deserve more attention. Samurai were used as mercenaries throughout the country. I mean, throughout Asia, my bad. Let's see. So I'm getting a lot of history questions. I love these kind of questions and stuff, but a lot of them I'm kind of just hopping over because it's a little bit harder for me to just go off and start answering history questions on a live stream right now because a lot of that I want to read about and go into detail. So if there's something that you're asking about that I don't really know too much about, I don't want to make a fool of myself on a live stream and try to answer a question I don't really know the answer to. Thank you for those kind of questions, but I'm kind of just hopping over a bit of those at the moment, just because I don't want to, try to answer a question that I don't have the information for readily available either in my head or in front of me. Why did Nobushige Sanada have such a good reputation if he didn't fight in many battles? So, Sanada Nobushige, or better known as Sanada Yukimura, he had a very good reputation. I think his reputation, of course, got very inflated in the Edo period, of course, following what he did at Osaka. What goes back to, I think, starting with where you kind of can start pointing to his reputation kind of growing, goes all the way back to perhaps, I would say, the Imjin War. Because apparently it was during that he must have been serving either under or alongside Shimazu. Is it Tadashige? One of the Shimazu clan figures who was in the Imjin War. And at some point, I don't know if I assume this is legit, but once again, this could be one of those things where it's more of a romanticized thing. But he was called the #1 warrior in Japan by the Shimazu clan guy. So that's where it starts. You have this guy being kind of called this amazing warrior, and then from there, of course, he fights alongside his father in the siege of Ueda, the second siege of Ueda, and then of course he goes on and he's at Osaka. I think a bit of his clout, his fame, his influence, whatever, comes from, of course, his father being such an influential figure. Sanada Masayuki, of course, one of the best strategists of the entire Sengoku Dai, and you kind of funnel that down into Sanada Yukimura, or Nobushige, who then goes on and fights in an amazing defense at the second siege of Ueda, completely stalls out Hidetada, and then you go on to the siege of Osaka, which is just the monumental end of the period, and he literally stands up Ieyasu, nearly kills him, and drives him just into complete just rage that this one guy is essentially, I mean, according to the stories at least, is sort of this big reason why the siege doesn't go as planned for Ieyasu. So in terms of why his reputation is so big, a lot of that comes after he died. But I don't think that should be a discredit to him. He's a very influential figure, regardless, I think, for the fact of what he did do in life. And I think it is perfectly accurate to label him as as he often is, as the last Sengoku hero for what he did. And yeah. And as long as we're talking about Sanada Nobushige, because I'm going to be obsessive about something for a moment. I don't have them in front of me here, but next time I stream, I'm going to show them off. There's a game called Anachronism. It was a card game put out by the History Channel, and they made a number of different cards for different types of warriors throughout history, and it's like you kind of play these cards and they fight each other, these warriors and stuff. And one of them was Sanada Nobushige, and I've been trying to find him and buy him because I love that card game, and I didn't realize until recently that he had a card. This game was discontinued over 10 years ago, so they're not in production anymore. It's hard to kind of track down these cards. But if anyone out there has a Sanada Nobushige Anachronism card, please get in contact with me. I will pay you handsomely for it. Let me go back to the questions here, but I know a bunch of them got going here. Another question about that. Getting some repeat questions, that's totally fine. Let's see here. In samurai history, what role did modern-day Hiroshima play within its history? Was it a major stronghold for certain groups? Was the birthplace of Hiroshima? Okay, so Hiroshima, super fascinating story. And I've gone into it a bit. I think I went into it in my top 10 castles video. But Hiroshima, basically, of course, it was a town, or it was an area for the longest time, obviously, but it wasn't a stronghold or a hub for a clan until the later years of the Sengoku Jidai, when the Mori clan came down from northern, or I guess positionally, just upper Aki. They came down and they wanted to build a more centralized kind of power base, and they chose Hiroshima because it was a really good spot. And they started building Hiroshima Castle there. Of course, they didn't really finish Hiroshima Castle by the time of the Battle of Sekigahara, in which Mori Teramoto, of course, picked the losing side to support. He was on the Western Army side. So he got kicked out of Aki, he got kicked out of Hiroshima. And then I don't remember if he finished it right away before he died, or if the next person who came in finished it. But what happened is the next person who came in, I don't know if it was right away, if it was Fukushima Masanori, but eventually Fukushima Masanori got in control of Hiroshima Castle, and it was Fukushima Masanori who, I don't know if he finished it or something happened where there was construction being done on it that wasn't actually approved by the Tokugawa Shogunate, and that pissed off the Shogunate, because you had to get all castle construction, renovations, improvements, all of it approved by the Shogunate. And he didn't, so he got kicked out of Aki at that point. And what's really interesting regarding that particular part of the story is that plays heavily into the plot of Harakiri, the movie I mentioned earlier. But, of course, from that point on, it was a really strong point. It was kind of one of the strongest points of interest in Western Honshu. And it kind of stayed that way throughout the rest of the Edo period into modern Japan. And the castle stood pristine until, of course, the atomic bombs were dropped on Hiroshima, in which then it was destroyed. But it was then rebuilt, I think by 1950, I think it was, either 50 or 55, somewhere in there. They built like a reconstruction of Hiroshima Castle that was like a weird kind of carnival reconstruction of it, which is, it's awkward that that's only 5 to 10 years after the bomb was dropped on the city, that they built this kind of weird like fake version of it for this like festival or whatever. And apparently the people loved it so much that it was back and it was there as even just this prop, that they said, okay, we should actually just rebuild it for real. So a few years later, they tore down that fake one and actually put up what is there now, a reproduction of Hiroshima Castle, which is it's really cool to go see because it's basically kind of hollow interior. The castle is there, but it has like a hollow interior, and you go in, and essentially you go up the levels, and it's a museum of basically Hiroshima's history prior to the dropping of the atomic bomb. And I think that's a really interesting thing because when you go to Hiroshima, the big thing for history is the bomb. But you kind of go to Hiroshima Castle and it's like, oh, but here's the city before all that happened. Here's what it looked like. Here's, the planning of the castle. Here's the area. Here's the city, right before the bomb was dropped. It's really, really fascinating to go see. I recommend it to anybody who goes to Japan. Go to Hiroshima. Go see Hiroshima Castle. It's really a nice kind of area outside of when you think of Hiroshima. Why did Christianity never take hold of Japan despite the presence of Catholic Jesuits? Interesting question. So Buddhism, Shinto Buddhism was kind of really the established order that played such a major role in Japanese society. So when you have Christianity coming in, it faced obstacles right away. But there were those who did want to immediately kind of take it because they thought if you adopt Christianity, maybe it'll help you get maybe more guns or more clout or influence with the West, and you'll get more improvements, advancements of different trade and things coming in. So you have people who want to adopt it like that, and then you have people who genuinely did believe that it was the correct religion to follow. I think Otomo Sorin, he definitely, I think, took it for that reason. I think Konishi Yukinaga, I think someone like him definitely believed Christianity was the way to go because even when he served someone like Hideyoshi, who was so against Christianity, you have he still under Hideyoshi followed it regardless. But in terms of why it didn't really flourish after a certain point in time, you have to get into the fact that it was trying to uproot the established order, the established Shinto Buddhist order of the way things were. And when you had a daimyo that adopted Christianity, or a society that adopted it, they would kind of go and try to force out the Buddhist Shinto establishment. So you had a bit of that going on in Kyushu. And they would burn temples, and they would kind of cause a lot of damage and things because Christianity was the true way, and they wanted to push out things that were the false way. So when Hideyoshi came in and took over Kyushu and subjugated the Shimazu, he kind of saw that all firsthand. He saw how the presence of Christianity had affected the island, and he's already kind of leery about it. And at that point, he really realized, okay, no more. So that's when you start getting him starting to try to ban Christianity and kind of convince all of his daimyo that you really shouldn't follow this. I don't want you to follow this anymore. But what he did, from what it seems like, it was more of a slap on the wrist than it was actually anything really enforced. And it didn't come until later with the Tokugawa Shogunate that really things got out of hand with crucifying people and butchering people, and anyone who tried to spread it anymore was severely punished. And that's why you get really interesting films like Silence, where they're trying to go and do stuff in Japan with Christianity, and it's an ugly situation. But that's why really it didn't spread after a while, because Japan realized, or the leaders of Japan realized, how it was uprooting the established order and affecting the country as it was. Let's see here. If the Taira had gotten rid of all Minamoto members or rivals, how long do you think they would have reigned, and how far would they have gotten? Okay, this is a fascinating question and one I think about all the time. What would have happened if the Taira, let's just say if the Taira won the Genpei War? So you have the child emperor Antoku. So the thing that Taira Kiyomori wanted to do was basically marry his way, or through children, kind of get himself into the imperial throne. He wanted to take over the seat of the emperor, so that the emperor would be of the Taira clan. That would be huge. If the Taira won the Genpei War, Kiyomori, who was dead at the end of the war, he would have gotten his way essentially. He would have Antoku would have been put. He would have been the emperor. So from that point on, the emperor would have been a Taira-born son. And you really don't need a shogun then. If the emperor is a Taira. The Taira are the winners. The Taira would rule Japan. But of course, then you get into how long would that have maybe lasted? Would that have been permanent? Could that have been feasible for too long? Personally, I think it could have lasted as long as the Kamakura Shogunate, if not longer. You have to remember that sort of this isn't 100% true, but the Emperor of Japan, their lineage is kind of unbroken. I mean, it stayed within the family. It wasn't always passed father to son, but it sort of stayed within the same bloodline, the same family. You know, there were times where a cousin took over or something, but it stayed within the family. So if you think of the emperor being a Taira-born son and that lineage or legacy continuing on, that would be pretty impressive or crazy to think about, because you would have already the highest seat of power in the country as part of this family. It wouldn't be like the shogun, who, although was in control of everything, was still below the emperor, and you couldn't necessarily go against it. You could kind of force the emperor to do stuff, but you really couldn't necessarily outright go against the emperor, and that's where big problems happen. That's where you have things like the Genko War, or the with the Kinmu Restoration, or later the Meiji Restoration, the Boshin War. So it's like the shogun really, you could force the emperor to do stuff, but he really couldn't ever go against the emperor. But if the emperor was of a clan already, that would kind of change the whole political landscape. And I think it's a really good chance that if that were to have happened, you wouldn't have a warring period like the Sengoku Jidai. I imagine the grip over the country would have been more secure. Of course, that's all speculation, but it's really interesting speculation of what would have happened. I think it's a really awesome question to ask. Oh, okay, so there's another Sanada Maru question. I don't know if this was the same one that was asked earlier. Can I ever do a review of Sanada Maru? So, for those of you who don't know, Sanada Maru is an NHK taiga drama. It's basically, think of like BBC dramas, or or shows, I guess, but, not documentaries, shows, but Japanese shows. So, they yearly they do these year-long series of different kind of historical, stories. So one of them they did a couple years ago was about the Sanada clan and Sanada Yukimura, and that was called Sanada Maru. In terms of Sanada Maru, and in terms of, I guess, all taiga drama that have to do with samurai or the Sengoku Jidai, I do want to, at some point, start going into those, but I don't know when that's going to be. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I don't want to get a bunch of copyright claims for trying to review those if I'm not just using pictures, which I'll get into in a sec. Actually, I want to talk about that too. But I do want to. It's a show that I've watched a bit of. I haven't watched all of it, but I do want to do that at some point. I don't know when. I can't give you a date. But going back into regarding reviews in general, because I want to just stress this. Film reviews and show reviews are getting increasingly hard for me to do. If you noticed, my earlier stuff, or my reviews in general, I've kind of slowed down. My earlier stuff, I used, of course, I used video in my review and video footage. But as of late, whenever I've tried to make more film reviews and stuff, they have gotten, of course, copyright claimed and things. And of course, with newer films, that happens a lot. And what will happen sometimes, and this really kind of freaks me out, I guess, because I'll post a review and it'll be fine. It'll be up on YouTube just fine. And then like weeks later, like 2 weeks later, maybe a month later, then I'll get a manual copyright claim by the company, by the film company or whatever, saying, and of course they want to take all revenue from that. Which is, I guess it's fine if they want to take all revenue from that, but that's not always the case. You also have companies that will just take the whole video down. Even if it's a review, even if it's fair use, they'll come in and they take the whole video down regardless. And I've tried to appeal these, and they'll be like, no, it's still our property, we don't want you showing it. Even if I'm not using any audio from it, I'm just showing video clips and talking to my review. That famously happened with my review of Ron. That's the first time that happened. They must have had my channel on some like watch list, because I remember I uploaded, I think, 3 different times, tweaking it so they couldn't claim it. And every single time they came in, they manually claimed it, and that was just, it was ridiculous. So I'm getting just frustrated with that. That same problem happened with Age of Samurai. Happened with other videos too. I'm not gonna go into the full list, but this has happened a number of times now, and I don't like making reviews with just pictures. I like showing video clips. Like look at like channels like History Buffs. He uses full video. Or just other history, channels that review, Netflix films or something. But they get away with it, and I don't know if it's because of the size of their channel, like they're bigger, and companies don't want to go after bigger YouTube channels. Like I don't know the answer to this, and it kind of annoys me because I know channels can get away with showing like video footage, and other channels can't, and have to fight through copyright claims. So I will be putting reviews out still. I'm just kind of at a point where I'm like, well, do I want to make this with just pictures, or do I want to bite the bullet and try to do it with video and see how that goes? I don't know, and it's always a question in my mind then when I make film reviews now these days, which is I don't want to ever have that question in my head. Yeah. All right, I'm going to stay for probably just a few more questions, then I'm going to be getting off. I only wanted to kind of stream for about an hour today, just to kind of see what this is all like, get a handle on it. The next time I stream, though, I'm going to definitely schedule it, just so you guys know in advance, because I know this was kind of random for me to just start streaming. But yeah, let's answer just maybe like one or two more questions. Let me go back up here. Anyone got good links to where to find Taiga dramas? I know there are sites that just have them all there. I guess that's kind of shady to do that, but there are sites out there that just have all the Taiga dramas you want, and you just watch them for free. I don't know which ones they are though. Once again, thank you so much, guys, for all your support in the comments here. It really means a lot to hear that you guys love my channel so much, my series, and everything I'm doing here. It keeps me going. It really does. Thank you so much for all your support. Am I satisfied with the growth of my Patreon? it is. I mean, I guess I went in with really no expectations. I know at the time that I made it, my channel was smaller than it is now, obviously. I really didn't expect necessarily how fast that would grow as fast as it did. It's not big. It's not, it's. I think my Patreon is growing at a good rate. I think my problem is I'm terrible when it comes to making exclusives for other content. I mean, for other sites. I mean, because I want all of my content to be on YouTube for everyone to see. So it's like I have a problem with, if I make a Patreon, I want to be able to do stuff on there for just my patrons to incentivize, there's joining my Patreon to create incentives. But I also have, of course, under the problem of, okay, but if I make a video or background or something just for Patreon, it's hard to, I guess, in my mind, do that, because I want to also show you guys here on YouTube too. I can go deeper into that because there is some other stuff too regarding that I could go into. But in terms of, am I satisfied with how it's growing? Yeah, of course I am. Anyone who is on my Patreon, I am satisfied with, because that's amazing that you guys are supporting me on there to begin with. I hate the idea of asking for that kind of support for money and stuff, but to exist as a content creator in this day and age, you need that to survive. For those of you who don't know, this is all I'm doing right now. I don't have another job at the moment. I mean, I do have a job lined up, is the thing. I'm supposed to be an assistant English teacher in Japan, but that's just, I'm waiting for the country to open up. That'll happen when it happens. As of right now, what I'm doing is YouTube. And of course, I'm kind of just living off of what I earn from YouTube and of course my Patreon. And the Patreon money is going somewhere else though. I don't necessarily just use that. I keep that because I want to save that up and go towards getting, like I mentioned in my Patreon video, kind of using it for the channel, using it to help buy things for the channel, film equipment, different stuff, the rights to different things to use in my videos. That money is being used for the channel. But it's hard because this is all my income right now is currently coming from YouTube and that. But yeah, I'm happy with its growth. It's been a slow growth, but I'm still happy with it. I mean, I'm glad that it's still, in general, it's there, because I love that, you know, people support the channel enough that they want to, of course, give that kind of money, and I'm eternally thankful for anybody who does that. And I want to create, once again, good incentives, regardless, to help, incentivize that. Like the voting for the samurai history, the clan history videos. Live in Osaka? Oh, it's awesome. I'm jealous. Yeah, I could have come. I basically, when I was supposed to originally move to Japan, was the day after the U.S. went into level 4 lockdown because of COVID-19. So I had to make the decision: do I go, or do I kind of hang around in the U.S. for a bit? Because I'm basically I'm an only child, and my parents both are in their mid to late 60s, and they were in the high risk category of for COVID. So it's like, if I go, there's a chance I might be able to come back if they get sick. So I took took the hard path and stayed here. And basically, what I've been doing, of course, since then, have just been YouTube. I'm still, technically, I'm got this employment through the company. At some point, I'm going to be going over there, but it's just waiting for when Japan opens up. I don't want to go too much into detail what company I'm going through, though. I don't want to go too personal into what I'm using. I'm just going to say, though, the company that I'm employed through is one of the larger private ones. I did a video for top samurai warriors and leaders, but what about favorites, personal favorites? Yeah, I could do personal favorite samurai this or samurai that. Once again, yep, I I have a hard time doing personal favorite stuff because I don't feel like I'm anyone special. So it's like, why would I personally make that? I know people want to hold me in this high regard for my channel, but at the end of the day, I don't really know how much you guys want to know my. I mean, I guess people do want to know what my favorites are, clan and stuff. So I could do a personal favorite list here and there. I just don't know when I would do that, because I would do personal favorite stuff after I do just a general, like, if I were to do, say, a personal favorite samurai battle list, which I could do. I would only do it now because I've already done my authentic, top 10 samurai battle list, and then I would do a favorite one and be like, oh, okay, that's the real list of what I personally think is that, but here's my actual favorites now. If I were to do a personal favorite top 10 samurai, whatever. If I was born a peasant in Japan and conscripted into if it be an Ashigaru, what clan would I want to be in? Okay, I gotta ask, if I'm conscripted into joining a clan in Japan, is this do I know everything about the period going into it, or am I just, living in the moment? Because if I go into this choosing a clan knowing what happens, I'm gonna choose the Tokugawa, obviously, because I feel like they got out the best. But if I didn't know anything and I was just a peasant in Japan, I don't know. It's hard to say, because that'd be too random. Then you wouldn't know who's gonna win. But if you knew who's gonna win, why wouldn't you choose the Tokugawa? Thank you so much for your support. If I plan to go to Japan for a vacation-related experience, I would go to Tokyo, Sekigahara, and Kagoshima. Those are all great choices. All right, I'm gonna choose one more question, and I want it to be a really good question. I want. Come on, throw me something really, really unique. Okay, I'm choosing this one. Okay. Is there any possibility of me going inside of a Tenchu, how it was designed, showing the interior design and the way it has evolved over the years? Yes. There is a very high chance of me talking more about Tenchus and showing inside of Tenchus. I've been in contact with people in Japan who have talked to me about, giving me private tours of stuff. I'm not going to name names or anything here, but I have had offers here and there of stuff like that. So if I'm ever, when I'm in Japan, if I'm ever able to do something like that, I'm going to leap at the opportunity to go inside and film inside of like a Tenchu like that. I want to make content like that when I'm in Japan. I want to do live in the field kind of videos talking about history. Yeah, so that is definitely a very realistic thing I could do. All right, that is the final question I'm gonna be doing now. Thank you all so much for being here, being a part of this. This was obviously a bit more awkward, a bit more strange going in. This is the first time I'm doing a stream ever. The next one I'm going to definitely try to schedule out, maybe in the next week or so. I want to do a nice follow-up one, because I know this one was abrupt. So yeah, thank you so much. Anyone who has a question I didn't answer, feel free to come by next time, ask me it again. Once again, thank you for all the great comments and stuff, and thank you so much for your support and everyone coming out to help. Just being a part of this, it's great. So I guess I will see you all later. Thank you so much.